Okay, so I was initially going to have a really hype intro. I was going to get super duper excited before this, but on one hand, I don't have a quiet house at the moment. I'm not the only one home, and it's like 11:30 at night, so I can't be as loud as I'd like to be when recording this. And also, while this show was super hype and everyone was excited, some of the stuff that came after it was a little bit controversial, and we will talk about that. So because of that, I didn't want to come on camera and just be all, woo! Knowing that there are some things that came after the show that made people feel less than woo! With that said, my eventual grade for this show, because I do always grade these kind of showcases, is probably going to be a little shocking. Just know that I'm only grading the direct itself, not anything that came afterward. Just be advised. Either way, I've been yapping enough in this intro. Welcome back to I Want to Talk About, the series where I take a topic, I sit on camera, and I blabber about it. And this was super duper anticipated by myself and by many others, and now it is finally time. As you can tell from the title today, I want to talk about the Nintendo Direct centered around the Nintendo Switch 2. Yes, finally, the Nintendo Switch 2 has been revealed. The Nintendo Direct centered around this thing has happened. We now know some of the plans involving the games, the system itself, etc., etc. Of course, the Switch 2 was first announced back in January, but it seemed like that was kind of a move to ward off the frequent leaks, because I've been hearing leaks and rumors about the Switch 2 since like 2021, before the Switch OLED came out, so this thing has been the topic of conversation for a very long time now. And as we entered into the new year, there were starting to be a crap ton of leaks and rumors and blah blah blah, so it seemed like that initial reveal trailer was just kind of to ward off the leakers and just kind of get it out there that, yeah, the Switch 2 is happening. But we were going to have to wait until April for the actual showcase, and now we're here. And obviously the Switch 2 was going to have a lot to live up to, because the Nintendo Switch, the original version, is obviously one of the highest selling systems of all time. I believe it's the second highest, only behind the PS2. And while there are things you can complain about with the Switch, like how much weaker it is than the competition, it has carved out an incredible library of games, one that I would say is among Nintendo's best. And I know I've mentioned in some videos that the PS2 and GameCube are my favorite systems, but the Switch is definitely up there for me. This thing has been one of my all-time favorites. I put so much time into the Switch. I love the Switch. Back when I was in college, I had someone say that I was basically a walking Nintendo Switch advertisement, because I was always playing my Switch, and because I was always wearing my Joy-Con Boy shirt, rest in peace to Etika. So of course, I was excited for the Switch 2, and I was just hoping that it would be a good system, and it would have some great games, and hopefully some great third-party support, because the Switch had some pretty good third-party support, especially compared to some of Nintendo's previous consoles, but I was hearing a lot of rumors about some of the big third-party games coming to the system, and there were some huge ones. So I was hoping for that, but also more of Nintendo's great first-party games, because that's why I love Nintendo. And ultimately, during the Direct, we definitely got that, because this was a fantastic show. It's just that there was a little controversy afterward that we'll talk about that might have soured it for some people. Obviously, I have my notes of everything that they showed, and we're going to go through it, but I want to say real quick, if it seems like this video is not as long as you'd think it would be, or if it feels like I'm blowing through some games, my apologies. This show was very third-party centric, and therefore there are quite a few games that I could honestly just be like, yeah, I played it, it's good, cool that it's on Switch 2, yay. So I don't want to waste a ton of time on that. With that said, before getting into those games, I am glad the show was loaded with third-party games, because I know that a lot of people, myself included, buy Nintendo systems for the first-party Nintendo games and all, but dude, I lived through the Wii U era. I was in the trenches at a time when Nintendo could give a company $5 billion and they still wouldn't put their games on the Wii U. Seeing some of these games be announced for the Switch 2 was crazy, but before we got into the third-party games, we kicked off the show with the one Switch 2 game that we had known about, not its exact title, but we knew this one was coming because it was in that reveal trailer back in January. We finally got a deep dive into Mario Kart World. I am not gonna lie, while watching the footage that they showed during the Direct, I actually thought I was going to start crying because it looks so good. Mario Kart 8 was already one of my all-time favorite games, maybe top like 4 or 5 or something like that. And it has been 11 years since that game first released on the Wii U, and 8 years since the Switch re-release, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe. And with how amazing that game is, I was like, how the hell are they going to follow that up? Turns out they answered it. They're going to basically make an open-world Mario Kart game. what? I'm not even huge when it comes to open world games, but the idea of like an open world Mario Kart where you can just kind of travel around the world, go off-road, and you gotta drive to the next race on the next racetrack, that's crazy to me. Like, yeah, it's still gonna have the standard Grand Prix mode and all that stuff, and yes, there are gonna be 24-player races, but the fact that it's now open world is nuts. And it's cool how, like, the time of day and the weather is going to change the way that you drive around and the conditions and all that stuff. And the amount of characters that are going to be in this game is absolutely nuts, too. Even the choices of characters were kind of blowing my mind. I mean, the one that obviously jumped out to me and to a lot of people is that the Moo Moo Meadows cow is a playable character. Like, the cow. You can even play as the sidesteppers, the little crab motherfuckers from the arcade Mario Brothers game. What the fuck? They are putting in a lot of characters from, like, Mario, like, enemies, like foot soldier enemies, and it's just crazy how deep they're going into the Mario lore with this roster. I cannot wait. It looks awesome. And for the first time in the history of the franchise, a Mario Kart game will be a launch title for a Nintendo system, which is not a surprise given how big Mario Kart 8 was, that Mario Kart World is going to be launching with the Switch 2. I'm not giving the date just yet because we'll get to it when they announce the date, but yes, this will be a launch title on the Switch 2 for $80. Ugh. Yeah, I mentioned that we were going to get into some of the controversy, and yes, this game is going to be $80. I don't know for sure if that's the digital price or the physical price, because I've heard some people say it's 80 physical, some say it's 80 digital. I don't even know. Admittedly, I kind of blame Nintendo for not communicating this well, and it turns out there are going to be at least a few other games that might be 80, which, ugh, gross. It definitely left a sour taste in my mouth, but, I mean, if I can wash that out for a minute, the game, again, looks incredible, and there's going to be a dedicated Nintendo Direct focused on Mario Kart World on the 17th of April, and that's really fun, and I know they showed a lot of it at the Nintendo Treehouse event after the Direct. I didn't really keep up with the Treehouse, but seeing the way that people spammed the chat telling Nintendo to lower the prices, okay, I gotta respect that. Kudos, Nintendo fans. Then for the next little bit of the show, we got into some stuff regarding the system itself. One of the big things was that we finally learned what the little C button on the Joy-Con does, and that is the chat button, because there is now a Nintendo Switch 2 chat app type thing that basically just kind of looks like a Nintendoized version of Discord. Like, quite literally, if you look at that, it's pretty much just like Discord or Zoom or one of those kind of things. But it's cute. Finally, Nintendo's actually getting with the times and giving some kind of fun little voice chat type thing, and there's also going to be a Switch 2 camera that can be used to, like, video chat. Again, I know many people will say, like, oh wow, Nintendo finally did something that's been done for 20 years, but you know what? I'm just kind of glad it exists. And the camera itself will be available as an accessory on launch day, so that's nice. It looks kind of funny. I don't know why. I just like the design. Kind of looks like a Luxo lamp. It does kind of suck that you need to have Switch Online to do the voice chat, but then again, I guess that's Nintendo for you. You need Switch Online to play online. Kind of sucks, but you know. If nothing else, there's going to be like an open period where you can use the Switch chat outside of Switch Online until like March 31st of next year, so I guess that's cool. And there's also a game share feature that they're adding where you can kind of play games on multiple consoles even if you don't have the game. Kind of like that DS download play thing that they did back in the day, which is pretty fun. And Game Share itself also works with the Switch one, so that's nice. So far, it only works with certain compatible games. Right now, the compatible games are Super Mario Party Jamboree, Big Brain Academy Brain vs. Brain, Super Mario 3D World plus Bowser's Fury, Clubhouse Games 51 Worldwide Classics, Captain Toad Treasure Tracker, and Super Mario Odyssey. But some Switch 2 games will be compatible in the future, so cool. All of those games can be shared with users locally and online, but Mario Party can only be shared locally, so there you go. And then we got into more of the specifics about the console itself. Obviously, some of the stuff you expect, but also some really cool stuff. Basically, it's got a bigger screen, of course, woo. The screen can also do 1080p, which is pretty crazy, and it can apparently go in both handheld and console, or docked, or whatever you want to call it, up to 120 frames per second. Holy shit. No excuses now, Nintendo. Better not see many more 30 frames per second games on the Switch 2. The screen is also LCD. There's going to be HDR support in both handheld and docked. The Joy-Con 2 is now magnetic. We've kind of known about that for a while, but they don't kind of click in anymore. They magnetize, which hopefully helps with the drift. I don't know if they said what the purpose of them being magnetic is, or if there's something better about them being magnetic. It's just that they are. The buttons are a little bigger, specifically the SL and SR buttons and the control sticks. The obvious thing we were hearing about, that there is mouse support for both Joy-Cons, so you can kind of like tilt your Joy-Con and like moving along the table as like a mouse, which will kind of help with games that are kind of PC-like in nature, like a strategy game, for example. Again, more of the stuff you kind of expect, some better speakers and audio, built-in mic for voice chat. It is going to be 3D audio compatible, so that's pretty cool. There's a new stand, 2 USB-C ports. It'll be 256 gigs of storage, which is 8 times the amount of the Switch 1, with faster reading and writing. When docked, it can display or output up to 4K resolution in HDR, which is pretty nuts. The dock also has a fan ventilation for cooling. Hopefully it won't be super crazy loud, because that's part of the reason I can't really play my own Switch right now, because when I play it, it's all like, so I don't want to have to hear that when I'm playing. And of course, it is backward compatible with Switch 1 games, both physical and digital. I think I did read that some games have some issues, but I think it's mostly stuff on the third-party front. And then they quickly showed off the Nintendo Switch 2 Welcome Tour, which is essentially like a tutorial-type game to kind of get used to the Switch 2. There are some kind of cute little mini-games and tech demos in there, too. From what I saw of the Treehouse, I think there's a mini-game where you play like World 1-1 of Super Mario Brothers, and the screen kind of like starts out in a pretty low resolution, but it like grows to show that the Switch 2 can output at 4K, so that's kind of cute. Doesn't seem like much. It's just a standard tech demo type game like Nintendo's done with, you know, Wii Sports, Nintendo Land, 1-2 Switch. It is coming out on launch day as a paid game. Oof. That has been another thing I've seen some people complain about. Granted, the Japanese price is like the US equivalent of like $6, so I kind of understand both sides here. Like, if it's under $10, I'll live. I probably wouldn't have got the game anyway, because it's kind of just an instruction manual. But I understand why others are disappointed in it, because again, it's basically making people pay for what is essentially an instruction manual. Especially because the PS5 came bundled with Astro's Playroom, which, while that was only like a 2-hour game, was still a fully featured game with like a campaign and objectives and whatnot. So given that Astro's Playroom kind of raised the bar, seeing something like this feels a little like a kick in the nads. Again, if it's super cheap, I'll live, but I understand why people are upset. They then showed a couple more light things about the system, like how the game cards are kind of the same as the Switch 1, but they're red now, and there's like faster data reading and whatnot. The system is not compatible with Switch 1 microSD cards. It now uses microSD Express cards, which, I mean, I know microSD is probably better, but in terms of the fact that I can't use my old SD card. Obviously, you can transfer your data from your old Switch to your new Switch, your Switch 2 rather. That's nice. I'm glad. They showed the new Pro Controller, which has some new GL and GR buttons on them. Cool. And they did announce the proper launch date, which, again, that's what I was kind of waiting to say, but it's coming out June 5th, which, again, seems very soon given the announcement, but then again, this is what they did with the Switch 1. Announced in October 2016, big show in January 2017, and then it released in March. So, kind of the same timeline here. Either way, cool, June 5th. And then we kind of talked about this in my last video, because this was talked about in the fine print of some Nintendo-based website, but they did confirm that, yes, there will be Nintendo Switch 2 editions of games. Not every game will get a Switch 2 version, and also not every game will only be improved by getting a Switch 2 version. There will apparently be some games that will receive some free upgrades, or free updates, rather, that improve the visuals and performance. Chief among them being Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, thank heavens. But we did see some of the games that are going to get Switch 2 versions. First of them being Super Mario Party Jamboree, plus Jamboree TV. I guess that's part of the new name for the Switch 2 version. This version of the game now features mouse controls, audio recognition, greater use of the rumble, and has some camera-based mini-games. It basically just looks like an even bigger version of Jamboree. And I love Super Mario Party Jamboree, so I'm down for more content, and a lot of the mini-games do look really crazy. Also, I don't know if I'm really getting that Switch 2 camera, but after seeing the Bowser Live mini-games that use the camera, close enough. Welcome back, Kinect. And the Carnival Coaster seems fun. I like seeing all the mouse-controlled minigames as well. This is coming July 24th, and this was confirmed, not just for this game, but for any game that gets a Switch 2 edition. There is going to be an upgrade pack that you can buy if you already own the game, thank God. I know that there were some people that were kind of upset about that as well, because you're paying for a game you already own. And yeah, again, if I had my way, I would like all these upgrades to be free. But if it's like the PS5 where the upgrades are like no more than $10, that's not too bad, especially because this comes with so much more content as well. Another Switch 2 edition, or two other Switch 2 editions, these are ones that I know a lot of people will be very excited about. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom will be getting Switch 2 editions. Thank God that they will have better frame rates, and also HDR if you're more into that too. Apparently they're also adding like achievements to the game, a la like Xbox achievements or PlayStation trophies, but they're only through the Nintendo Switch apps. That kind of sucks, but you know, it's something. It's a step in that direction. And they're coming out on launch day, so if you have Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom and you want to play them in 60 FPS, you'll have your chance as soon as the Switch 2 drops. Also, Kirby and the Forgotten Land is getting a Switch 2 edition. It's Kirby and the Forgotten Land plus Star-Crossed World, because obviously it's going to improve on the performance of Kirby and the Forgotten Land, but it also has a brand new side story along with it. Kirby and the Forgotten Land was my personal favorite Kirby game. I love the game, so I'm definitely down for more content in the game with a new story. And this one's coming August 28th, so definitely keeping my eye on that. And as I'm pretty sure I predicted in my last video, if not predicted, I kind of alluded to this. Yes, Metroid Prime 4 Beyond is going to get a Switch 2 edition. Obviously, I kind of saw it coming. Thank God, though. And with the Switch 2 version, you will be able to use mouse controls, which again is great for a first-person shooter. And apparently it can be played at up to 120 frames per second, even in portable, which is absolutely fucking nuts. Still no confirmed date, but of course it's coming out this year. Obviously, this is a game that I've been anticipating all year long, and I'm definitely excited to play it on the Switch 2, as well as the last Switch 2 edition that they outwardly talked about in depth. But again, as I predicted, or as I expected, Pokemon Legends ZA is also getting a Switch 2 edition, which will definitely help with the performance. It's already been confirmed that this will play at 60 FPS on the Switch 2, which, again, given some of the performance of recent Pokemon games on the Switch 1, thank God. Again, though, still no date, which stinks, but it's coming out late in the year, so that'll be a fun holiday game. And again, all Switch 2 editions will be available physically and digitally as expected. Some of the prices, again, are a little bit exorbitant right now, so But then we got into a new first-party game, and a bit of a surprise. This one was called Dragon Drive, or Drag X Drive. I think it was Dragon Drive. Like I said, it is a first-party game, so if you want to throw it into the pile, then go ahead. But yeah, this game is pretty much like Rocket League, but with basketball, and all the characters are in wheelchairs. It uses the mouse controls and is kind of like a demonstration of them, because you kind of move like this with the mouses, the mice, rather, laid out on the table almost. It seems fun, and I'm sure it'll showcase the mouse controls very well, but it also looks like it'll be like a multiplayer only kind of game, so I don't think I'll engage too heavily with this one. It kind of looks like this is trying to be the Switch 2's version of ARMS, and I can only hope that this one lasts a little longer than that one did. It's coming out this summer, so I guess we'll see very, very soon. Now, for a long portion of the rest of the show, we got into third-party games, so again, if I blow through some of these, my apologies, but again, it was really cool to see a lot of these games get confirmed for the Switch 2, knowing that I would have never expected these games to be on even like the Switch 1 in some cases. But chief among them, this was a huge one, was Elden Ring Tarnished Edition. I am not really a FromSoft player myself, but I know that this game is huge and widely beloved, so it's super cool to see that a game of this scale and size is coming to the Switch 2, and it's coming sometime this year, so that's pretty hype. Also very hype, Hades 2 is coming to Switch 2. I can't fucking wait for this game. I know it's been in early access for a minute, but I only have a Mac, I don't have a PC, so I can't try it out on PC. But I love Hades 1, so I'm definitely super fucking pumped to play Hades 2. And again, coming out sometime this year, so this is definitely on my radar. Also, Street Fighter 6 is coming to Switch 2. Street Fighter 6 is a really great game. And again, Street Fighter 5 and 6 weren't on the Switch, only like some of the old school games were. So it's pretty sick that this is coming to Switch 2. Apparently there's also some like exclusive modes for the Switch 2 version, but they didn't expound on them, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. There's a Years 1 and 2 Fighters Edition that has probably like a bunch of the DLC fighters, I presume. That's pretty dope. And there are some new Amiibo figures and even Amiibo cards coming to the game, which is low-key kind of cute. I don't really care for Amiibos much, but this is pretty fun. Cool that they're doing it for a third-party game, and this will be a launch game coming to the Switch on June 5th, so definitely one I can recommend checking out at launch if you haven't played Street Fighter 6. Even if you have, because I think I've heard from some of like the early people who have tried the demos out of the Switch 2, I think I've heard that they've said that the Switch 2 version has the lowest latency of the bunch, so it might be the new definitive way to play the game. Who knows? Either way, it's a great game, so definitely check it out. Then we got into a game that kind of surprised me, but maybe shouldn't have. Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion. Now, this was a genuine surprise because I had no idea that this existed or was already announced. Apparently, a Daemon X Machina sequel was first mentioned in like September of 2021 and was officially announced in May of 2023. But I slept through that, so seeing this get announced, I was kind of like, what? That said, I never played the first one, so I don't know if I'll be playing this one. Actually, no, I tried the demo of the first game, and I thought it was pretty cool. But I just never ended up getting it because I heard some mixed things, and it also came out around several other Switch games that I was more interested in. Mario Maker 2, Astral Chain, Zelda Link's Awakening Remake, Luigi's Mansion 3. So it was a pretty busy time, and I think it just kind of got lost in the pack. It looks cool. I think these mech-type games can be really fun, but given my lack of experience with the first one, I'm not totally sure if I'll grab this one. But it's coming September 5th, and unlike the last game, it's also going to be available on PS5 and Series X, so I guess we'll see. Moving on from there, we got the announcement that Split Fiction is coming to the Switch. I'm currently playing this right now with my brother, and it is fantastic. Amazing game. Joseph Fares is obviously incredible. A Way Out and It Takes Two were awesome, and this is just as awesome. It's already a huge Game of the Year contender for me. It's going to inevitably be. Very awesome to see it on the Switch, especially because Switch is great with multiplayer and stuff like that, so a game like this is going to be awesome. And it's going to be a launch game, coming out June 5th. So definitely if you're getting a Switch 2 at launch, grab Split Fiction. It's freaking awesome. Then we got just a little reveal of EA Sports bringing the EA Sports FC and Madden franchises to Switch 2. Again, I don't really care for sports games outside of like the occasional MLB The Show game, but at least as far as like mainstream appeal or games that can appeal to a more casual gamer, it's kind of dope to see that these franchises are still going to get a chance on the Switch 2. Hopefully the EA Sports FC game will actually be like a fully featured one and not like whatever the fuck they were doing with the FIFA Legacy editions on the Switch. They didn't give dates for these because it was just kind of saying like, yeah, we're gonna put these franchises on the Switch at some point. So yeah, Then we got to see Hogwarts Legacy coming to Switch 2. I know this one's already on the Switch 1, but it's great news that it's gonna be coming to the Switch 2 and that it'll play better there. I tried this game out and I really wasn't too big on it, but I know a lot of other people loved it, so it's cool that it's going to be coming to the Switch 2. It'll probably do pretty well on the system, and I think that bodes well for the inevitable sequel that they're going to make to it as well. Because given how well this game sold, there's going to be another one at some point. And again, it's a launch game, so that's a cool one to look forward to if that's your thing. I'm more looking forward to the next thing that they showed, Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 3+4. I'm absolutely pumped for this one. I probably won't play it on the Switch 2 because it's going to be on Game Pass, so I'll just be downloading it on Xbox. But I'm definitely excited for it because I loved Pro Skater 1+2. It was kind of funny because they showed like a split-second glimpse of a SpongeBob level during the Direct, and I kind of was like, whoa, SpongeBob! And then that was that. Like, they just didn't linger on it very long. So hey, at least we know SpongeBob's gonna be there. The game itself is coming out July 11th, 4 days after my birthday this year, but the Switch 2 version I don't think is coming out on the same day. They just said it's coming out this summer, hopefully pretty soon or pretty close to the other console versions. Either way, definitely pumped for this one. Then we got the announcement of Hitman World of Assassination Signature Edition coming to the Switch 2. I don't play Hitman, but I know this game is super well liked, and it's very popular, so it's cool to see that it's going to be coming to the Switch 2, and that Nintendo players will be able to play the game without that stupid cloud version thing. Ugh. I don't even want to think about the fact that Nintendo was doing cloud versions of third-party games on the Switch. But yeah, even though this isn't my kind of game, I know it's a big one, and it's awesome that it's going to be coming to the Switch 2 on launch day as well, June 5th. Definitely one to look forward to. And IO Interactive wasn't done because they confirmed that Project 007 is going to be coming to the Switch 2. This one low-key kind of blew my mind because I forgot this was ever announced. It was first announced all the way back in 2020, and we've heard nothing of it since. And even now, they didn't show any gameplay during the Direct. It was just the, you know, the James Bond theme, just like letting you know, like, oh yeah, it's going to be coming to Switch 2. In about 7 years when it's actually ready. Yeah, it was pretty crazy to see it pop up during the show. But, you know, IO Interactive does good work with Hitman, and I expect this to be a quality game when it does come along. There's no release date yet. who the hell knows when we're gonna see it next. Moving on from there, we got to look at Bravely Default Flying Fairy HD Remaster. I remember when Bravely Default first came to America in 2014, minus the Flying Fairy subtitle, which I guess they've just added back this time around. And I know it was a pretty well-liked game on the 3DS, but as someone who's not too into turn-based RPGs like that, this one kind of flew over my head. Looking at it now, it probably will continue to fly over my head, but I'm happy to see that it's happening, and I'm hoping that the hardcore fans are more excited for it than I am. And it does look like they're adding a hell of a lot of new content this time around and new features. I do love that you can fast forward through the battles now, so that seems like good news for the hardcore fans. And again, it's a launch game, so that's something to look forward to. Then we got to look at Yakuza 0 Director's Cut coming to the Switch 2. I know this franchise is super popular, and I'm pretty sure that Yakuza Kiwami is the only Yakuza or Like a Dragon game that's on the Switch now. So it's pretty nice to see this showing up on the Switch 2. I don't really play this series either, but it's cool to see it here, and hopefully this means that other games in the franchise will come to Switch 2 sooner rather than later. And again, another launch game, so definitely a cool third-party game to look forward to. Then we got a game that I guess would count as a first-party game. It does involve a big Nintendo franchise. We got to take a look at Hyrule Warriors Age of Imprisonment. Yeah, I definitely wasn't expecting like a wholly new Zelda game at this Direct because we just got Tears of the Kingdom 2 years ago, and we even got a brand new mainline 2D game with Echoes of Wisdom last year. So at most, I was expecting maybe like we'd get a tease that like, oh yeah, there is a Zelda game in development. But otherwise, I was really only expecting like a remake or a remaster at best. Turns out, no, what we're getting is a brand new Hyrule Warriors game, which I don't mind. I don't think the Hyrule Warriors games are like master strokes, but I do enjoy them, and the last one, Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity, I thought was quite good. So I'm definitely down for another one. I know that the Warriors series is one of those things where they say, like, if you played one, you play them all. But I don't mind getting another one in the Zelda style. And much like how Age of Calamity was a prequel to Breath of the Wild, this one is a prequel to Tears of the Kingdom, which took place after Breath of the Wild, so this one is the in-between-quel. Look, Zelda's story and its timeline is incredibly convoluted. I don't make any effort to understand it. But yeah, this looks like it's bringing more of what I enjoy out of Hyrule Warriors. It's not exactly reinventing the wheel, but if you're in the market for a thrilling action game, this should be just that. And if you're in the market for some good old Zelda fun, this should be that. And it's coming this winter, so that could be a fun little Christmas stocking stuffer for some of y'all. One of the big surprises that wasn't like an individual game, we then got the confirmation that GameCube games are coming to Nintendo Switch Online, which is awesome. I know a lot of people have been waiting for this one for a while, and again, as I said earlier, GameCube is one of my favorite systems, so I'm happy to see that some of these games are going to be showing up on Switch Online. As far as the launch games, we're getting The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker, Soul Calibur 2, and F-Zero GX, some pretty cool ones there. And they did confirm some other games that are going to be coming to the service later, those being Super Mario Sunshine, Fire Emblem Path of Radiance, Pokemon Coliseum, and XD Gale of Darkness, Chibi Robo, Super Mario Strikers, and Luigi's Mansion. Pretty fun ones, and they did confirm that on the Switch Online GameCube stuff, which can only be played on Switch 2 as far as I know. This doesn't seem to work with Switch 1, but with Switch Online GameCube games, you can remap controls. I don't know if you could do that with the other systems, but still pretty cool. This is going to be their launch day, of course. You will be able to play those GameCube games on Switch 2 at launch, at least the first few that I mentioned. And they did confirm that they're releasing a new GameCube controller for the Switch 2, which is great because the GameCube controller will never die. Seriously, I still have mine, and the rubber on the control stick is like ripped off, but the controller still works fairly well. I could still wave dash and dash dance and do all that cool stuff in Melee with this thing, so that's a real sign. This thing, I've had this controller for probably like 20 years now, so yeah, the GameCube controller will never die. Nor will the GameCube itself, because it's made of bricks. Back to third-party games, we then got the confirmation of Deltarune Chapters 1 through 4. Now, I don't know shit about Undertale or Deltarune or either of these games, but I know that they're super popular. I see them trending on Twitter all the time. They seem to have a pretty huge following, and Deltarune seems to be a pretty big deal, so it's cool that these first 4 chapters are going to be hitting the Switch too, and they're going to be there at launch, so that's pretty dope. Then we got to see that Borderlands 4 is coming to Switch 2. I'm not a Borderlands guy either, but it's kind of crazy to me that a franchise this big and this recognizable, a brand new game, is going to be coming to the Switch 2, and that I'm pretty sure from what I heard it's going to be day and date, on the Switch 2, again, that's pretty nuts. Like, I know the previous Borderlands games were on the Switch, but they came out much later, and as a Nintendo fan, I'm trained to expect third-party games to come like a year or two later. So it's cool to see a game that's this big and this popular of a franchise is going to be day and date. Like, I know Borderlands hasn't been in the best place, and there's some mixed opinions on this new game, but I know it's still hotly anticipated, and will probably do some pretty good numbers for Gearbox. So it's cool to see that it's going to be day and date on Switch 2. It's coming out September 23rd, so hopefully this one ends up being good for the people who are more interested in the series. And 2K wasn't done. They had a pretty big presence at the show, because they then revealed Sid Meier's Civilization 7 coming to Switch 2. Outside of Civilization Revolution, I don't play the series either, but I know of its popularity, and it has been on Switch as well, so it's cool to see that it's going to continue with the Switch 2. This one does have an upgrade pack because I believe it's already available in the Switch one, so that's nice. And given that this franchise is also very popular on PC, the fact that the Switch 2 now has mouse controls also makes this an even better game for the system, so that's cool. And it's a launch game, so definitely one to look forward to. And then the last 2K thing was that WWE 2K and NBA 2K are coming to the Switch 2. Take what I said about EA Sports FC and Madden and just copy and paste it here. They were just confirming that these franchises are going to come to the Switch 2. Again, I don't care much, but it's cool to see some like mainstream, more casual franchises like this come to the Switch 2. No date was given because they just were confirming, oh yeah, they're coming, so get ready. Then we gotta look at Survival Kids, the game that actually froze the stream, so yeah. That happened. Seemingly, this is actually a new entry in a Konami franchise that was previously known in America as Lost in Blue and hasn't gotten a new game since 2008, so it's crazy to see it come back. And it's basically a survival game that looks kind of cute. I don't know if it's multiplayer or if it's just that you control 4 characters at once. It's not something I plan to play, but I guess it seems kind of fun, and it must have been pretty peak if it broke the stream. And it's a launch game, so that ought to be fun. While the stream was breaking and fixing itself, we also then got to look at Enter the Gungeon 2. Conveniently enough, I actually just tried out the first Enter the Gungeon because it recently came to Game Pass. I don't mind me a good roguelite or roguelike every once in a while, but I think my feelings on this one were a little more lukewarm than some others were, just because I've played a lot of roguelike and roguelite games that have come out since it and obviously improved on its formula. But it's still a fun game, and apparently this isn't the first Enter the Gungeon follow-up, but it's the proper numbered sequel to the first game. And this one is moving into a 3D art style. I'm not sure how I feel about that just yet, just because I like the OG art style, but this is still going to be exciting for fans of the first game. Very little was shown though, so I think I'll definitely need to see a lot more to see if it's really a huge improvement over the first. And it's not coming out till 2026, so it seems like we've got time. From there, we got to look at Starseeker Astroneer Expeditions. Now, this game I actually didn't see during the initial live stream because the stream, like I said, broke, and while they were doing whatever they could to fix it, the stream basically totally skipped over this game, so I had to learn what it was later. Apparently, it's a sequel to a 2019 game called Astroneer that I only know of because I've seen the cover a few times, but this looks like a cute enough little sandbox game. Nothing mind-blowing, but I don't think it looks too bad. I'm sure it could carve out its own little niche. Probably not the game that I'm, like, begging to play on the Switch 2 right now, but it could be kind of fun. It's coming out sometime next year, so that ought to be cool. Couple more pretty hype third-party announcements after that. We then got to look at Cyberpunk 2077 Ultimate Edition. If you told me back in 2015 when I first learned what Cyberpunk 2077 was, that it would come out on a Nintendo console, I'd have probably laughed in your face. So the fact that they managed to cram this thing down enough for the Switch 2 is pretty incredible to me. I know that there was some controversy about Switch game cards not having all the data and you had to download stuff or something, but apparently Cyberpunk won't require an additional download, I think I read, so that's pretty nice. And this is a very good game. It's definitely one that I've wanted to jump back to at some point, given my love of the Cyberpunk Edgerunners anime. Maybe not on the Switch 2 specifically, but maybe I'll eventually grab that Phantom Liberty expansion. But still, cool to see that this is going to be coming to the Switch, and it's going to be a launch game on the Switch, so definitely one that you should check out on the Switch 2 if you haven't played the game already. And again, since it's the Ultimate Edition, it comes with Phantom Liberty, so that's extra cool. Then a pretty huge third-party game, one that was actually kind of rumored a lot before the show, but I'm glad to see it was officially confirmed. Final Fantasy VII Remake Intergrade is coming to the Switch 2. This one is a pretty huge deal, because remember, it was the original Final Fantasy VII that marked Square Enix jumping ship from Nintendo, so the fact that its remake just got confirmed for the Switch 2 is pretty incredible. And also pretty crazy, because it's still not on Xbox. So the fact that this game skipped the Switch, got announced for Switch 2, and still hasn't even been announced for Xbox is low-key pretty insane. I don't know what the terms of Sony's timed exclusivity deal are, but damn. Nevertheless, Final Fantasy VII Remake is incredible, and I highly recommend playing it, so it's awesome that it's going to be on the Switch too. I've seen some screenshots and some footage. It looks fantastic on the Switch too, and the way they phrased it in the trailer by talking about how this is the first part of the Final Fantasy VII Remake project does tell me that Rebirth is eventually going to hit the Switch too, and that the inevitable third part that they're making, Final Fantasy VII Fried Beans, is eventually going to hit the Switch too as well. I've heard rumors that Rebirth is coming, so I'm sure we'll see. I'll be happy either way. I'm glad this one is coming to the Switch too at the moment. It's coming out this year. That's going to be really hype. We then got a sizzle reel of a bunch of third-party games, and there were a bunch here, so I'm kind of just going to rattle them off. There's only going to be like one or two that I talk about at the end, especially because most of these games were shown off at the last Nintendo Direct, so you kind of know they're coming. And I'm not going to change the picture on screen here. I'm just going to rattle off what the games are and when they are coming. So as part of the sizzle reel, we got to see that Kunitsugami Path of the Goddess is a launch game. Hollow Knight Silk Song is coming out sometime this year. Story of Seasons Grand Bazaar on August 27th. Goodnight Universe sometime this year. 2 Point Museum sometime this year. Wild Hearts S on July 25th. Witchbrook this holiday. Puyo Puyo Tetris 2S is a launch game. That's pretty awesome. Rune Factory Guardians of Azuma on launch day. Marvel Cosmic Invasion this holiday. Star Wars Outlaws at some point in 2025. Nobunaga's Ambition Awakening Complete Edition on launch day. Fast Fusion is a launch game. Shadow Labyrinth on July 18th. Raito Remastered The Mystery of the Soulless Army on June 19th. No Sleep for Kaname Date from The Somnium Files on July 25th. Reanimal from THQ Nordic coming in 2025. Fortnite is a launch game. It's Fortnite, you had to know. Arcade Archives 2 Ridge Racer on launch day, Professor Layton and the New World of Steam sometime this year, Tamagotchi Plaza June 27th, and Human Fall Flat 2 with no release date. Again, a lot of games. In terms of, again, the notable ones, I guess Star Wars Outlaws, I know it's not like a huge game or something people love, but, you know, cool to see that Ubisoft is still going to be supporting the Switch too. Wild Hearts S seems like a pretty big one. Fast Fusion was kind of cool. I'm glad to see that franchise is continuing since Fast Racing Neo came to the Wii U. But of course, there's the big one that I know you guys are going to want me to talk about. Yeah, during the sizzle reel, Hollow Knight Silk Song was there, and they just kind of like showed it for a bit, and we're like, yeah, it's coming to the Switch too. Next. Like, not realizing how much everyone's been waiting for this game. I think it was announced in, 2019, and it's still not out, and it's one of those things where it feels like every time someone's like, I can't wait to see Silk Song, they're like applying the clown makeup and putting like the wig and the squeaky nose on as they're saying that stuff. I mean, it's cool that it showed up. And apparently, according to the sizzle reel, it's coming out sometime this year. I'll believe it when I see it. I don't play Hollow Knight, so I'm not in that boat of waiting that everyone else is, but I'm glad you got to see more of it, and hopefully it does finally come out this year, because Jesus. Then we got one more big third-party announcement, although it technically can be considered first-party because it's Nintendo published, but it's a partner game, so there's that part. The last big partner game, and this was huge, we got the announcement of the Duskbloods. Now, this was the announcement that blew the minds of damn near everyone. We already saw that From Software was going to be supporting the Switch 2 with Elden Ring, but now a brand new game from Software exclusively on the Switch 2? A first-party Nintendo game developed by From Software? God damn. I'm not even into their games like that, and I understood just how huge this is. And it's being directed by the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Hidetaka Miyazaki, who I know does incredible work, so that's going to be super exciting. And a lot of people were hyped about this because it looks about as close to Bloodborne as we're ever going to get again, so take that for what it's worth. Apparently, it's a multiplayer-focused game. Between that and Elden Ring Night Rain, FromSoft is really loving their multiplayer right now. And between that and me just not being a big fan of FromSoft, this is basically combining to be a game that I am not going to play myself, but obviously with how beloved FromSoft is, I'm happy for the fans, and I know this is going to be a huge one for the Switch 2. It's coming out sometime next year, so we're still going to have some time to check it out and see more about what it's like. We then closed the show with two hype first-party announcements, the first of them being a total surprise that I genuinely did not see coming. Kirby Air Riders. I actually screamed at my TV at the end of this trailer because it was announced that the man himself, Masahiro Sakurai, would be directing it. I just saw his name and I was like, Sakurai? Because many of you know Sakurai is the man behind Super Smash Bros. That's his real thing at this point. But he was the creator of the Kirby series back in the day. I just didn't think he'd be back to it because he left HAL Laboratory in 2003 and hasn't done any work on the Kirby series since well, the first Kirby Air Ride game back in 2003. So 22 years and a massive cult following later, Kirby Air Ride is finally getting a sequel, and that's crazy to me, with Sakurai directing it as well. Even crazier. I've only played a little of Air Ride, I never actually owned it when I was younger, but it's a fun enough game, and I'm excited to see where this sequel goes, and what they do with it compared to the first one. They didn't show any proper gameplay, but I definitely expect to see more of it very soon, especially because it's supposed to be coming out this year. So yeah, this one's definitely on my radar. But then they ended the show with a big surprise. They subverted expectations because a lot of us were expecting to see a new 3D Mario game, and we didn't get that, which I was a bit surprised at, but I was happy with what we did get to close the show. Donkey Kong Bonanza. This is what I've been waiting for so long, because I know 3D Mario's hype, but we got a 3D Mario game in 2017, and we haven't gotten a Donkey Kong game, period, at least a new Donkey Kong game that's not a re-release, since 2014 with Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. And we also haven't gotten a 3D Donkey Kong game since 1999. With Donkey Kong 64, a game that I honestly don't really have a ton of positive things to say about. That game feels tough to play these days. But yes, 3D Donkey Kong is back. It was almost back before because there was a 3D Donkey Kong game being made by Vicarious Visions of all developers called Donkey Kong Freedom. That was supposed to be like open world 3D with platforming, vine grinding, and a big emphasis on traversal. But it was seemingly canceled in 2016 because Activision redirected Vicarious Visions to help support Call of Duty, because of course they threw another developer in the coal mines. And since then, all we really got from DK was the re-releases of Tropical Freeze and Returns. But now, we're finally getting a brand new Donkey Kong game, a 3D platformer Donkey Kong game, and it looks peak. It's crazy how destructive this game looks. I'm hearing that DK can pretty much destroy like damn near everything, and the game will like remember what he's destroyed and stuff like that, which is nuts. I know it's kind of easy to compare every modern 3D platformer to not only a Mario game, but especially Super Mario Odyssey, but it really feels like this is Donkey Kong's answer to Odyssey, and I love it. And I do love that the game is still going to have some of the side-scrolling sections akin to Donkey Kong Country. Like, this really feels like the culmination of everything Donkey Kong has done up to this point. And I know some were complaining about Donkey Kong's redesign, but personally, I adore it. I think it's so charming, and I love how expressive he looks. I know that DK can be a menacing character, but he's also a very goofy one, and I feel like this design is emphasizing a lot of his funnier elements. This is definitely one of my most anticipated games for the rest of the year. It looks so awesome, and I feel like I'm gonna sink a crap ton of time into it. And it's coming fairly soon. It's coming out July 17th. Again, 10 days after my birthday. That will be a great birthday present. There was one last thing that they talked about during the show very, very lightly. This video did turn out to be a bit long, didn't it? I guess I spent more time on the games than I thought I would. But then they just ended the show with just the announcement of 2 different versions of the Switch 2. Basically, the bundle with just the console, and that there would be a bundle with a digital version of Mario Kart World. No price was actually revealed during the show, but after the show, we got to see the price. And again, this is where I mentioned that we'll talk about, you know, I guess the controversy. Although I already did that kind of with Mario Kart World. But the default bundle's price is $450, while the price of the Mario Kart bundle is $500. And obviously, this was a huge talking point, much like the prices of the games. As far as my opinion on the console's price, I'm not as negative toward it as I am the price of the games. Because here's the thing, I don't want things to be more money. In a perfect world, this would be like a $350 to $400 console. But here's the argument that I'm going to make. The closest comparable device to the Switch 2, at least in my eyes, is the Steam Deck. The Steam Deck that is 256 gigs, that plays games at 800p max and 60 frames per second max, is $400. Whereas the Switch 2, which is also 256 gigs, like I said, in just its handheld mode can max out at 1080p and can max out at 120 FPS and is $50 more expensive than the Steam Deck. That's not a huge jump from what the Steam Deck can do in terms of price, and it is a pretty big jump, I would say, on paper at least, technologically speaking. I know that we look at Nintendo as being the more affordable option, but this is the quote that I've been using over the last few days since the prices were announced. It's easy to be affordable when you're often behind the line. Because the thing is, the reason that the Switch was so affordable is because people were calling the Switch outdated as soon as it dropped. Yes, it could play games that you could play on your PS4 or Xbox One, but it wasn't nearly as powerful. Huge concessions had to be made. But now the Switch 2 actually looks like it's trying to, at least technologically speaking, be more of a big boy console. It's looking to actually have more hardware that is kind of closer, let's say, to other modern platforms that you're going to find. So yes, I know Nintendo is typically the affordable one, but I think it's easy to be affordable when you're kind of behind everyone else. Now that they're kind of at the line, I wouldn't say above the line, but they're kind of at the line, unfortunately I think the price just kind of has to go up. So again, I'm not saying I want it to be more expensive. In a perfect world, this thing would be $350, but as far as the price of the console, it's understandable. What I don't understand is how the Mario Kart bundle is $50 more, but the game Mario Kart World costs $80. That's a little nuts to me. Again, I understand that that part is inflation. You know, we've stayed at $60 for so long. Games probably should be costing more if inflation was factored in, but you know, it's $80 for a video game is crazy. I will also mention this. I forgot to say this part. It wasn't in my script because this just came out, but it has been mentioned. I wasn't even sure if I was going to talk about the elephant in the room as far as the prices of the games in the system, but one of the things that's been a topic of conversation around the Switch 2's prices and the game prices has been the tariffs. Again, I didn't want to get political, but in this case, you kind of have to. I don't know the actual impact of the tariffs on prices. I'm not as well-versed as I feel like I should be. If anyone is and can let everyone know in the comments, obviously that would be appreciated. Because I don't know if digital video games would technically be tariffed. I don't know how much of an impact the tariffs had at first on the Switch 2 or on the games or whatever. However, it did just come out that the pre-orders for the Switch 2 are going to be delayed because they're kind of assessing the impact of the tariffs. So I can only hope that the price of the Switch 2 doesn't go any higher than $450 to $500. Please don't go to like $650. I'm begging. I don't know if the tariffs will impact that or how they will impact that, rather, because they would. But hopefully this doesn't send them in the opposite direction, because I think it would be way harder to justify buying a Switch 2 if it comes out and the tariffs make it like $600, $700. The fact that these tariffs are even happening is fucking shameful in and of itself. But either way, as far as the Direct itself, getting to my final thoughts. The Direct was fantastic. To me, it did everything that the Switch 2 Direct should have done. It showed the console, it let us know that it's going to be a powerful device that could handle a lot of big games, that the hardware was a huge step up from the Switch 1. It's got a great release date, some cool new features. The third-party lineup is killer. The first-party games, I know they didn't show a ton, but what they showed does seem really exciting. And keep in mind, we don't even have like the holiday lineup. I know that they might be kind of earmarking Metroid Prime 4 and Pokemon Legends ZA as like the holiday games or whatever, but you know, Nintendo has a lot to look forward to on the Switch 2 front, and probably plenty more to announce very soon. So the Direct itself was killer, and that's even without announcing a 3D Mario game. A lot of us thought it was going to happen, and I was very surprised that it didn't, but I can stomach it when Mario Kart and Donkey Kong look so amazing. It's just kind of sad because while this Direct was utterly fantastic, I think a lot of the conversation that came afterwards left a bit of a sour taste in the mouths of myself and many others. And not to say those conversations shouldn't be had. It's important to have these conversations, and it's important as consumers to use our voice to demand better in terms of pricing and things like that. Like, that's why I said at the beginning of this video, when I mentioned that fans were spamming the Treehouse chat telling Nintendo to lower the price, I appreciate that. I think that's great that fans were using their voice in that way. But it's just kind of sad because, you know, this really seemed like, oh my god, Nintendo's firing on all cylinders, and then the prices come out for the games and the systems and the accessories and the instruction manual, and it kind of soils the conversation around what was a really, really good reveal. Did the conversation ruin the overall Switch 2 and make me not want to buy one? Not necessarily. I mean, I still want to get a Switch 2, probably at launch, but it's just kind of a shame that this really felt like such a good reveal, but this reveal was undermined by some pretty bad communication on Nintendo's front about the prices. Again, is some of that tariff influenced? Maybe. We'll see. But it is kind of a shame that it soiled what was ultimately a really good show. Like, if I had to give the Direct a grade, like I said, this is just grading the Direct itself without the impact of the news to come afterward, I would absolutely give it an A. It was a great show, and even going back to watch it while I was writing the script for this video and writing notes and stuff, I was smiling. I had a giddy smile on my face the whole time because of the sheer amount of games and big games that are going to be coming to the Switch 2 on the first and third party front. And again, as someone who lived through the Wii U era, it was really cool to see all these big third-party games that are going to be coming to the Switch 2. But again, the grade would be a little bit lower if I was factoring in the news to come afterward and Nintendo's communication. Because even as someone who wasn't angry about the system price, I was a little more upset because Nintendo's messaging on the system price was not very good. It almost felt like they knew there was going to be some controversy around the pricing, so they intentionally omitted it from the Direct to kind of avoid that, which is a little All in all, though, great show. Really great show. Definitely has me excited about the Switch 2. I think it's going to be a fantastic system. I just really hope that the prices are not that exorbitantly high, or that Nintendo at least offers something to mitigate them a little. I know that's asking for a lot because Nintendo never drops prices on their games. I'm pretty sure Breath of the Wild is still $60. But, you know, a kid can dream. I mean, yeah, the sour taste in my mouth is still there, but judging the Direct solely on its own, it was amazing, and I'm definitely very excited for the Switch 2. But that's just my opinion on the show. What did you guys think about it? Are you just as excited about the Switch 2 as I am? Did the news that came afterwards soil it for you or leave a sour taste in your mouth? Are you just completely indifferent toward it? And what are your most anticipated Switch 2 games? What are the ones you're most looking forward to playing? For me, again, it's definitely Mario Kart and Donkey Kong, but what about you guys? Whatever your thoughts, opinions are, leave them down in the comments below. Let's keep this civil and have some fun as we like to do. Please, let's keep it civil. I know that there's a lot of tough conversations to have around Nintendo and all this stuff at the moment, so please, let's just be civil. If you guys want to hit like and subscribe and support some of my other ventures that I have linked in the description, thank you. If not, of course, it's no big deal. I don't blame you. It's okay. I appreciate you coming by anyway. And yeah, I don't know what my next long-form video is. This one's probably going to take a lot out of me because the raw footage is over an hour. I thought that this video wasn't going to be super long, but as it turns out, I guess I talked about some games a little longer than I expected. Also, given that I didn't have like a script written, there were a couple times where I just kind of rambled because I was excited about some of these games. So I don't know what my next long form video is going to be, but I know that I'm going to have more soon. I've got some ideas. It's just about kind of building them as best as I can. Also, I've been really busy with work lately, so apologies for the slow pace, but I'll try my best with what I've got, and definitely I'll have more short videos, more album reviews coming soon as well. So stay tuned for that, but until next time, thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.